Hey everyone, you've probably heard the phrase 3 degrees of global warming thrown around in the news or online, but what does that number actually mean? Today, we're going to pull that abstract number out of the headlines and into the real world. We're going to see what a 3 degree world really looks like. 3 degrees. It sounds like nothing, right? I mean, in our day to day lives, it's the tiny shift that makes you decide to wear a jacket or not. It's the difference between snow and slush. Honestly, it's a number we barely even notice. But, and this is the whole point, when you scale that number up to the entire planet, 3 degrees is absolutely world-changing. It's the difference between the Earth we know and a planet in crisis. And it's that gap between how small it feels and how big it really is that we're going to unpack today. So, first up, how do scientists even get to a number like 3 degrees? I mean, it's not just a random guess, right? Nope. It comes from some of the most complex and powerful scientific modeling that exists. Before we look forward, let's just get our bearings. We are not starting at zero. The planet has already warmed by about 1.2 degrees Celsius since we started burning fossil fuels on a massive scale. The changes we're seeing now, that's just the start. In fact, think about this. Kids born today are set to face up to 7 times more extreme weather events than their grandparents did. The projections we're going to talk about come from hundreds of the world's top scientists who work with the UN. These climate models aren't crystal balls, but they are the absolute state of the art. They crunch massive amounts of data to give us the clearest picture of where we're headed if we stay on our current path. And that path, well, it's pretty startling. What the data shows is that with the policies we have in place right now, there is at least a 1 in 4 chance we will hit 3 degrees of warming by the end of this century, a 25% chance of catastrophe. Let that sink in. To really put that risk in perspective, the climate scientist Yuri Rogel came up with this brilliant analogy. Even in the more optimistic scenarios, the chance is still 1 in 20. So let me ask you, would you board a plane if you knew it had a 1 in 20 chance of crashing? No way! Yet, that's the gamble we are taking with our entire planet. Okay, enough with the models for a second. This isn't just about the future. The warming that's already happened is having a massive human cost, right now. Let's look at the real stories of people who are living on the front lines of this change. Meet Manara. She's from southern Bangladesh, a place where rivers, swollen by melting glaciers and heavier rains, are literally swallowing up entire villages. Her home was washed away. She lost everything. Now she's what we call a climate migrant, living in the crowded slums of Dhaka. And she's just one of nearly 400,000 people who are forced to do the same thing every single year. Now, let's go halfway around the world, to Guatemala, where we meet Israel Ramirez Rivera. He faces the exact opposite problem. He's a farmer in a place they call the dry corridor, because longer, harsher droughts are making it almost impossible to grow the food his family needs to survive. And this chart really tells the story behind Israel's struggle. In his region, the kind of severe drought he's experiencing is now 4 times more likely than it was just a century ago. This isn't just a string of bad luck. It's a fundamental change to the climate, and it's forcing people off their land. So you have Minara's story, and you have Israel's story. And together, they show us the 2 sides of the same coin. A 3-degree world is a world of jarring extremes, way too much water in some places, and nowhere near enough in others. So what does that look like on a global scale? Well, on the too much water side, you're looking at sea levels rising by 0.5 meter, which threatens the 10% of all humans who live on low-lying coastlines. And on the not enough water side, you have more than a quarter of the entire world's population facing extreme, long-term droughts. And again, this isn't some distant threat. Go to the village of Tuguru in Fiji. This is their life today. The ocean has already taken over half their village. Homes are abandoned, and the most heartbreaking part, family graves are now underwater. They've been told they have to move, but how do you just leave the land where your ancestors are buried? So as people are pushed from their homes by water or by drought, many of them move to cities. But here's the dangerous twist. In a hotter world, our big urban centers can actually amplify the effects of climate change, turning them into these incredibly dangerous heat traps. To really get why, we have to talk about something called wet bulb temperature. It sounds a little technical, but it's super important. It's not just heat, it's a measurement of heat and humidity combined. And here's the crucial part. When the wet bulb temperature gets too high, your body's built-in cooling system, sweat, it just stops working. It can't evaporate anymore. And there is a hard biological limit. A wet bulb temperature of 35 degrees Celsius is considered the absolute upper ceiling for human survival. Beyond that point, even if you're in the shade with all the water you can drink, your body just overheats. It's lethal. And places like Jacobabad and Pakistan have already hit this deadly number. So, what happens when you combine all of this? Mass migration, cities that are becoming unlivable, and growing shortages of basic resources? Well, the problem starts to escalate beyond just environmental disasters. You start to see the potential for the fabric of society itself to unravel. You can see how this becomes a dangerous chain reaction. It starts with bigger, more frequent disasters that could displace tens of millions of people every single year. They move to cities that are already stretched thin, and that sparks intense competition for basics, like water. This is the domino effect that can push societies right to the brink. And this isn't just theoretical. You can already see these tensions over water flaring up around the world. Turkey has built a new dam that's affecting water flowing into Iraq. China is making claims on rivers that are the lifeblood for India and Pakistan. These are the kinds of conflicts that will only get worse in a 3-degree world. Okay, I know all of this sounds incredibly grim, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But the science is also very clear on another point. This future is not guaranteed. It all depends on the choices we make right now, and those choices fall into 2 main buckets. Those 2 paths are adaptation and mitigation. Think of it this way. Adaptation is about treating the symptoms. It's building higher seawalls, getting more AC, planting drought-resistant crops. It is absolutely necessary to help people now, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem. Mitigation, that's about curing the disease. It's about stopping the problem at its source by drastically cutting our greenhouse gas emissions. That is the only real long-term fix. And this is the final crucial reality check. Despite all the promises and pledges you hear from world leaders, global emissions are still on track to rise by 2030. There's a massive gaping chasm between what we've said we'll do and what we're actually doing. And so that leaves us with this one final question. The path to a 3-degree world is being paved right now by our current actions and inaction. But that path can be changed. The science has never been clearer, the stakes have never been higher, and the choice is ultimately ours to make.
Thanks for watching. Like, comments, and share.